together with us. And normally they say, hey, my job is to stop the burglaries and the rapes and the homicides. I think they really understand a bigger picture of their job, and that's very helpful. And thank you for your comments, Council President.
And Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I wanted to pile on some of the thanks to and gratitude to you and your office for your involvement here. I think a partnership with Hennepin County's office is just crucial. I have an opportunity to have worked with you on Youth Coordinating Board extensively. Really appreciate your participation in there. Also our efforts at youth violence prevention. The more we do together, I think the better it benefits everybody. I also appreciate your strong stance on gun control and many of the other issues that the Council President brought up. I think that our hands are kind of tied by the state at the city level because they won't let us try new things and new ideas or change some of the state laws too to make it we maybe make more of a dent on the gun violence that's really a serious problem, very serious in our city. Also, I just wanted to acknowledge the transparency with which you dealt with the Jamar Clark incident. I didn't envy you. I don't think any of us did with what you had to do. You took the responsibility very seriously and really appreciated what you made available to the public. And I had a couple things I'd appreciate your comments on. You talked a little bit about upticks in crime, and you talked a little bit about opioids and overdoses. We time and again are looking at sex trafficking in the city of Minneapolis, and there are big concerns about what a hub it is. We're the largest city in the region, and there's, I guess, some uncertainty about if it's getting worse, if we're getting more awareness, if we're making any progress, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on that from your position.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Gordon, the sex trafficking thing is just awkward and awful, particularly sex trafficking in juveniles. The system was not very well set up for years. Too often the young women, particularly those in their teenage years, were not voluntarily in this business. They were forced into it, and the system couldn't quite figure out whether they were criminals or victims. I think we have made a clear decision, the legislature, but frankly led by county attorneys, and let me give John Choi Ramsey, he really took the lead. No wrong door. And so the young women who are forced into this business or get into this business are now treated as victims, and we really deal and work with them. We go instead and try to figure out who are the people that are running and doing the business. Pete Orpett out in Washington County is very aggressive. He's got a designated prosecutor and an investigator with his group. We have done some of that, although our volume is such that it would overtake one person. We have several people doing it. Commissioner Green has helped us with an additional person, and we're in the process of designating kind of the head of that sex exploitation team, and that person will be named in the next 2 weeks, which will be full-time. And we'll also have several other members on his or her team to work on this. So we're aware of it, and I think, a little bit about more transparency. We're learning. And we recognize it's a real problem. And people who just say, well, all this is just about the Super Bowl, that's garbage. There may be more sex trafficking overall at Super Bowl time, but it's not by young women. That's when the pros come in, and we're not going to permit that either. But our focus really is trying to help the young victims, and they are victims in this business. And, it's a different mindset for us. The criminal justice system sometimes moves kind of slowly. I think we understand. I think cops are doing a good job. You got some great Minneapolis cops who focus on this. So I think we're making progress. We got a lot of work to do.
I appreciate that. And I know that we've got a lot of work to do at the city too, but we're coordinating better and better now with other jurisdictions, and I think that really helps too. There's kind of a social media aspect to this that I don't really understand, but I think that some of our investigators, it's really helped get to the bottom.
Madam Chair, if I could just, one last point. I want to say in the last couple of years that your prosecutors across the board have worked more closely together than any time in my history. United States Attorney Andy Lugar, Susan Siegel, your city attorney, and I have worked very closely together. Andy worked with the other county prosecutors. It was a great team. And I'm sorry that Andy's not there. Greg Brooker, the acting, is a good person, but I couldn't ask for a better friend to work on things than Susan. And I mean, the people expect us to work together. I mean, the sheriff is supposed to work with the chief of Minneapolis police, and he does, and she does. But this kind of cooperation has been extraordinary, and I thank Susan for her help. Madam Chair, I've taken a lot of your time, but I
We
appreciate
have
it.
one more question.
I did
and I
have
want to
one more.
make sure Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And I appreciate all your wisdom and all the time that you've given us, but I was also curious about your thoughts about the issue of sanctuary cities. The city of Minneapolis has a separation ordinance. We have many residents, children, youth, very concerned about the current climate, given the Washington, who's in charge there, or who's the president. And so, and there's also concerns about what happens at the county jail in terms of immigrants who might be held. And I don't know if you have a view or a position on this. My understanding is the county does not have any kind of separation ordinance, yet I'm sure that people aren't asking people questions when they come up in their ambulance and that much as we are. And if there's any wisdom or coordination that we could have so that we can better help our residents all feel safe and have confidence in their law enforcement, I'd appreciate it.
Well, as a private citizen and a voter in Minneapolis, I support council member who voted for your sanctuary city positions. That's my private position, which I can share. Okay. As a public official in Hennepin County, I helped the sheriff understand that we could no longer hold people who a bureaucrat from ICE had placed an arbitrary 48-hour hold. What was happening is a person would be arrested, and today, and is appropriate, all the information about any person arrested, including name, address, date of birth, social security number, and immigration status, if it's known, is sent to Washington. It goes to the FBI, it goes to the CIA, and it goes to ICE. Okay, that's federal law. That's what happens. That automatically happens with everybody arrested anywhere in the state of Minnesota, and frankly, anywhere in the country that I'm aware of. Okay, I'm not an authority. So they have it. So ICE has the names. The question is, the practice in the past had been, if they were held in state custody and after 48 hours we didn't charge, they had to be released, ICE would call the sheriff's office and say, hold them for another 48 hours, we'll come pick them up. Well, that is unconstitutional, illegal, and wrong, and immoral in my view. Okay, you can't hold somebody unless a detached magistrate has considered that and decided it. A detached magistrate meaning a judge. It was just wrong. And that's what was being done all over the country. And there were just a few places that were starting to recognize you shouldn't do it. And let me give Rich Stanek credit. He was the president of the National Sheriff's Association at the time, and he didn't want to do this. Those law enforcement types, they get them in, they want to hold them. And to his credit, he agreed with me in my legal opinion, and he said no. That was 2 years ago. Now, this most recent thing was absurd. It just shows how poorly run ICE is and how a whole bunch of orders coming out of Washington make no sense. Okay? They accused him of letting people go and not telling ICE about these individuals for which their state time was done. At the 2 p.m. when they were released from their state time, guess who met them? The ICE agents. That's all legal because ICE had legitimate holds on them. Okay? And they accused Rich of just letting him out. Well, he didn't, and he embarrassed ICE, and now they've pulled back from that. I think President Obama did it right. That is, we need to focus on folks who commit violent crimes and who are in this country illegally. That's what our immigration laws ought to be focused upon, and not others. And I think what Minneapolis has done is right. I think Rich understands pretty clearly what the law is. I think, as you know members of the county board as well as I do. I think there's a significant number of members on the county board who do not like the orders that are coming out of Washington. The best I can tell, everybody's being very careful to follow the Constitution and the laws of this state and the United States, and I support that. And I'm not going to participate in any sweep of folks who may lack documentation to be in this country. I will not do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we've talked for a while, but I just did want to highlight two items that maybe hadn't come out as much that you did cover. And first, I just wanted to thank you for acknowledging that it's been a difficult few years in our community around issues of policing, and that, it's a real thing that not everyone in our community sees a police officer and feels safer. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. And your work to build in that trust and accountability into the system that goes all the way to your office, I think is really important in the work that we're all doing together to build that accountability and trust. So thank you. I also wanted to, I'm glad Councilmember Gordon mentioned our collaborative work as well on youth violence prevention. We have a small program, just like $150,000 right now, but we send basically social workers into hospitals to sit with youth victims of violent crime. These are kids 11 years old up to 20 something. And one of the young men who was part of that program came to our workers' day, and I asked him, have you ever been to City Hall before? And he said, not this part, because he's been through the other part of our City Hall system, maybe ended up, interacting with your office. He's been in our jail. And he said this is the only thing that's ever worked for him. He has been in and out of rehab. He's been in and out of our criminal justice system, and he has been given a chance through this small program that we're working together with lots of partners to fund. And I think it's important that just to, again, kind of highlight and elevate that in Minneapolis, we don't always talk this way, but I think our community's philosophy is that we need to invest in community to give folks the tools they need to make the right choices and not end up in our criminal justice system. And we work together on a lot of things with your office around violence prevention, around restorative justice, around giving people the opportunity for addiction treatment and services so they can get their life on track and make the right choices. And I think it's really important work, and probably the thing that in the end is going to really help continue to reduce crime. So thanks. And if you had any comments about that, I think we'd welcome them, but if not, it's fine.
Madam Chair, council member, if you were a recent immigrant from Somalia, and the only way you knew law enforcement was they knocked on your door and stole your food, raped your daughter, and raised havoc. When a police officer knocks on the door, they're carrying a heavy burden to understand we're here to help. We see it in the prosecution world because sometimes people have the courage to talk to the police and they tell them the story. And then we have to tell them if the case is going to trial, they have to tell it again. And they say, well, why do I have to tell it again? I've already told the police. Well, you have to talk to them about the Eighth Amendment, and you have to talk about the Confrontation Clause, and all those sort of things are like, that's not how it was back home. And I give credit to a lot of our Somali folks and friends. They've worked really hard to talk about how criminal justice works here and due process, and we do as well. And I'm proud that I hired the first Somali woman lawyer in Minnesota. She's now left and gone on to bigger and better things. But we have Somali lawyers, we have Somali advocates. In the court system, if you're a person you're not a European descent and you walk into a courtroom and everybody's there is from European descent, if there's anybody that looks like you at all, that's not very good. So we have prosecutors, and we've increased our number of prosecutors of color from 2% when I arrived in 1991 to 20% now. Our staff is overall over 60% people of color. We have Somalis, we have American Indians. We have the largest number of American Indian lawyers in any law firm in the state of Minnesota, as we should. You know, we've got the largest group of urban Indians in the country here at Little Earth and elsewhere. Yeah, my family are immigrants too. My great-great-grandfather was a Swede, and he made the mistake of marrying a Norwegian, and you couldn't do that in the old country, and he had to come to this country, okay? Seward neighborhood where I grew up has gone in my lifetime from kind of Polish and Eastern European to African-American to Somali in my lifetime. And that's to a credit to our city that we can embrace different people. Now, folks have got to follow the law as it is here. You can't have the Klan decide crimes of violence, and we need to work with folks in that, and that's it. But we're a great success story. Now, do we have prejudice? You're damn right we do, and we need to do a lot of work on that too, and we need to understand folks better. But, you know, I'm really proud to be from the city when I go elsewhere, because on immigration issues and treating people better, we're not the snuff yet, better, I'm pretty proud of this, and you all have helped lead the way. And, you know, we've got all sorts of different folks in the legislature and in the county boards and on the city councils, and that's good. Sorry about the sermon, but it's Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday of Holy Week, so I had to give a sermon. Sorry. Madam Chair, I really abused your time, but I've enjoyed it a lot, and thank you.
Well, thank you for staying. There were many questions that people had, which says that they're very interested in the partnership that we have with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. I'll say some of the questions that were top of my mind were asked by others, and I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. We have a very special relationship with the county, and in particular, a very special relationship with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. And so we really appreciate, as you mentioned, that we do have a good relationship, and that's very important to us as well. So thank you very much. And since nothing was submitted, I don't think we have any action to take on that. With that, we turn to reports of committees. First, with Community Development Regulatory Services, Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Community Development and Regulatory Services has 12 items we're bringing forward. Item number 1 is a bond issuance. Item 2 is a liquor license at the Target store downtown. Item 3 are some changes at Bar Louie. Item 4 has to do with allowing a temporary on-sale liquor license for 24-hour periods 2 times a year downtown to celebrate major events. For example, the commemoration of the passing of Prince would allow First Avenue to be open 24 hours. Item number 5 is the liquor, business, and gambling licenses. Item 6 are license conditions for the Leaning Tower of Pizza. 7 is development rights at 695 and 699 Lowry. Item 8 is our joint powers agreement with regard to our ESG grant. Item 9 is the Workforce Council contract with Hennepin County. Item 10 is a contract with Hennepin County for some job fairs. Item 11 is probably one of the larger items on our agenda. This is the establishment of the NOAA Preservation Fund program and guidelines. And item number 12 are environmental grant fund applications for the spring round, as well as, then these are grants, I should note, that are only going to be issued by the Met Council and DEED. There will be no Hennepin County grant awards this year as a result of all of that money being put into Southwest LRT. So there is no Hennepin County cleanup grant award round this year and for the next 4 years, I believe. I'm happy to answer questions on items 1 through 12 for Friday.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. I'll maybe just note to you, perhaps we need a better understanding at the city of other funds where we submit grant applications or other things on behalf of housing or community groups that may be affected by some of those decisions. So I'll note that. Next, we have health, environment, and community engagement with Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee is going to be bringing 3 things forward, possibly a 4th. The first item is authorizing issuance of our 3rd RFP for community solar garden services. Second is just a license agreement with the schools for our school sites in case of health emergencies. And then the 3rd is accepting a grant, a very small grant to cover some costs at our animal care and control area. I also will likely be returning with a substitute motion with regards to the waste tire issue. There was a resolution that we considered, and we had a presentation from the Park Board. I understand the Park Board will be considering and passing a resolution this afternoon or evening at their meeting. I've met with the superintendent and also with the president of the Park Board about it, and will likely come in with a substitute motion on Friday. And I'll try to get that to everybody tomorrow after we see what the Park Board does. I can stand for questions about it now as well.
Good. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Intergovernmental Relations Report, and I will give that. We have 2 items. The first is approving our contract with Lockridge Brindle Noun for federal representation services, and the second is approving an amendment to our 2017 legislative agenda that relates to common sense gun violence prevention initiatives. And I'm not seeing questions on that. Next, we have public safety, civil rights, and emergency management with Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. We will have 2 items for approval on Friday. One The first item is a non-standard form contract with the International Association of Firefighters. And the second is a contract amendment with SMG for bomb and 911 dispatcher services at U.S. Bank.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Transportation and Public Works with Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The committee will be forwarding 8 items, including the Winter Street Alley construction project approval, license agreement with the Holland Neighborhood Improvement Association for a flood basin planting, right-of-way entry for the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services Fridley Water Plant, agreement with Excel Energy to convert overhead electrical facilities to underground facilities at the location listed. Item 5 is a memorandum of understanding with Park and Rec for the Minnehaha Creek Watershed Management District for integrated planning processes. Item 6 is A Street South Reconstruction Project layout approval. 7 is the Penn Oliver Concrete Streets Rehabilitation Project, and there's an amendment to that project in terms of the time of the date. And then also 8 is accepting a low bid for commercial asphalt company for those materials listed. I stand for questions.
All right, thank you. I am not seeing any questions. Next, we have Ways and Means with Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. We have 14 items for consideration on Friday. First is a legal settlement. We also have a Good Works program donation acceptance for the farmers market. We also have an agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for a new Skyway Bridge. There's a contract amendment with Gunner Electric for a project at the Minneapolis Convention Center, an amendment to a contract with MnDOT for city use of land under highway bridges. We also have the gift acceptance for January and February of 17. Number 7 is going to be the bid for roof replacement projects at fire stations 17, 21, and 28. We've also establishing a pool of contracts with selected vendors for human capital consulting services. We have a contract amendment with Halogen for performance management software. This is part of a series of 5 IT department amendments and contract extensions. As I said, Perform Minneapolis software, ShotSpotter, the fingerprint system, and city citation issuance and management system, as well as a contract amendment with Safari Books Online. The final item is a collective bargaining agreement, a 4-year term with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 70 for stationary engineers. Happy to answer any questions on those 14 items.
Thank you. I'm not seeing questions. Next, we have Zoning and Planning with Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 6 items from Zoning and Planning. Item number 1 is Planning Commission reappointments for 5 individuals who currently serve on the Planning Commission. Item number 2 is a rezoning and street and alley vacations for the Minneapolis Public Schools on East Lake Street. Item number 3 is a rezoning at 2700 Cedar Avenue South from R2B to C1 to allow for a contractor's office. Item number 4 is an alley vacation at the Hennepin County Facility Services Department on Plymouth Avenue North. And item number 5 is adjusting the board member stipend for the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Adjustments. And then item number 6 is adoption of a resolution that Councilmember Reich are bringing forward, which is the next phase of our comprehensive plan update. And this is adopting draft goals that will guide the rest of the work as we move into the next phase of community engagement between now and 2018 when the plan is adopted.
All right. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. And there was some significant discussion in committee associated with the report regarding the comprehensive plan, specifically as it related to community groups. And I think there was a conflation between statements that were sort of culled from community input sessions to something that was indicative of where the city was as a matter of policy and priority. And so just by way of clarification, we're going to be adding a statement for Friday, something along the lines of that we will resolve that Minneapolis will have an equitable civic participation system that enfranchises everyone, recognizes the core and vital service of neighborhood groups provided to the city of Minneapolis, and builds people's long-term capacity to organize, to improve their lives and their neighborhoods. And I hope that makes clarification that clears up the issue that was so confounding just a week ago.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to sort of reiterate that I'm working with Councilmember Reich and Councilmember Gordon as chair of that committee to kind of bring that forward. And I do want to say, I met with staff yesterday and they had a big conference, the Community Connections Conference a couple weeks ago. And, and they asked me what they're supposed to do with comments that council members are going to disagree with that came out of that those sessions. And so I just want to kind of reiterate that I think it's important for us to maintain our ability to get feedback from community. And I know we won't agree with everything people say, and we have this of course the resolution. I think the good thing about the solution is it's at the policy level, which is where we are kind of most driving this work, and really to support and honor the work of staff on nights and weekends and all of the time that people are coming in to give input, and really make sure that people feel confident that when they come to a meeting and spend the whole Saturday at the Community Connections Conference, that they do get a chance to have their comments reflected in the summaries and all of that stuff too. So thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing further comment. And so with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.